The alien backed away quickly when the human entered, their lie shattered. Strange towers and hollow domes rose from the plain, half buried in bright dust. The ship's engines hummed softly, a small human sound against the vast and quiet world. Captain Mara Linson sat with her hands folded in her lap and watched the outpost grow larger. She had flown past empty stations and broken satellites before, but something about this place felt different. It was not dead. It was waiting. Mara kept her voice low when she spoke to the crew. She liked to move with calm. Panic made mistakes. Calm let people think. Approach speed steady. Keep sensors tuned to external life signatures and structural reads. We go slow, she said. Her words had the plain, steady cadence she used in the old Navy, the kind that told the crew this was a job and not a drama. The crew responded with clicks and tones. Engineers checked gauges. A young navigator traced the docking corridor on the hollow screen, and a quiet scientist named Ree ran a slow line of algorithms across a tablet. The outpost looked like it had been built by someone who wanted to be seen, and then forgotten. Tall pillars made of a material that caught light like wet glass stood around a central dome. Doors were carved with curving symbols that did not repeat. Machines sat like sleeping animals. None of the surfaces had the deep scars of battle. No scorch marks. No torn metal. That lack of violence made Mara uneasy in a way she could not put into words. Things that were meant to hide often hid without making a mess. "Captain," Ree said, his voice thin with a mixture of excitement and caution, "I'm picking up faint biometric traces. Low energy but human-like signatures. They appear to be inside the main area. I can't read species-level DNA, but there's life. Something is active." Mara leaned forward, palms resting on her knees. Her eyes caught the shimmer of the scanner and the soft glow of the instrument panels. "Keep a pulse on those traces. Turn on translated audio capture. I want all the logs we can get. We go in as guests." They docked in a bay that smelled faintly of old metal and something floral that the air scrubbers could not explain. Doors folded open with a sigh rather than a mechanical clank. The bay was bigger than it looked from outside, a wide atrium wrapped around an empty center. Light came from strips embedded in the walls. There were plants, real ones, growing in shallow pools of water along the rim of the atrium. They looked deliberate, part of the design. Whoever had cared for this place had liked beauty. A figure waited in the center. It did not move when the bay door's side closed. It stood like a statue and turned as humans entered, slow as if honoring them with a motion that matched the place. It was taller than most humans, long-limbed, with a torso that folded into a waist and legs that ended in smooth, rounded feet. Its skin was a soft pearl color, and its head was oval, wider at the top than the bottom. It had no visible hair. Its eyes were like polished stones, wide and calm. Its mouth was a thin line that smiled without teeth. The crew breathed a little more shallowly when they saw it, not for fear, for curiosity. They had expected emptiness, not a being waiting politely in the center of a ruined world. The emissary raised a hand as if to say welcome. It moved with a grace that felt almost rehearsed. The hand had long fingers and a small gold band on the middle one. The band caught the light and threw a small sun across the floor. It spoke. The voice was not human, not in tone, but it was fluent in the translator's first pass. The words came through in plain common, the language the humans used to speak with one another in the dark corridors of deep space. The translator did its job, slow and careful. "Welcome, travelers," the voice said. It sounded like wind over glass. "You are far from your homes. We offer counsel and safety here." Mara stepped forward. She kept her palms open and her shoulders relaxed. Her uniform carried the small scratches of a long career, a nick in the sleeve from a docking clamp, a faded patch sewn over a torn seam. She was not the tallest person in the room, but she had the quiet habit of taking the center when something needed guiding. Her eyes met the emissary's polished ones. "Captain Mara Linson of the exploration vessel Odyssey," she said. "We come with peaceful intent. We seek knowledge and safe passage." The emissary bowed with tiny, careful motions. Ree's scanner hummed. "Captain," he whispered, "their biometric pattern shows regular respiratory cycles, but there is something else. I can't yet say what." There are echoes layered under the primary readings. Mara's brow creased only a little. She had learned to trust the small signals. The human mind loves grand gestures, but machines tell the quiet truth. "Keep running diagnostics," she ordered. She turned her head to look at the crew. "Remember, observe, collect, be respectful. We do not make demands." The emissary gestured for them to follow toward the dome. "The council will be pleased," it said. "We preserve the safe maps. You will learn where to travel and where not to." The words sounded generous. The tone promised shelter. For a long moment, everything felt easy and right, like a quiet shore calling a tired traveler. They moved through halls that whispered. The architecture was patient and precise. Panels inlaid with soft lights shifted as someone passed, reacting like skin to a touch. Images lit along the walls, scrolls of stars and constellations, a history told in kinds of light the humans had not yet named. The emissary guided them with an accuracy that suggested long practice. It talked about the galaxy as if it had been a gardener tending a long row of trees, about routes safe from storms, about regions where the lights of predator species did not reach, about places where ships could anchor and children could run in fields. Mara listened, because people always learned from listening. Still, the small things in the room kept catching her attention. Timestamps on a display flickered like old clocks, showing years that did not match each other. A record of the outpost's maintenance log had a gap of 40 standard years without explanation. The plants lining the atrium were healthy, but their growth patterns repeated, like someone had copied a patch of moss and pasted it down the hall. The images projected on the walls showed star lanes shifting slightly when no one was watching. Ree's fingers flew over the console in front of him. He looked up at Mara, his face a mix of excitement and a wariness she had come to respect. "Captain, the logs show editing. Portions of the archive were rewritten. Some of the timestamps have been altered. There are ghosted signals, markers that appear and then vanish when the probe replays them." Mara kept her voice calm. "Thank you, Ree. Keep that channel open and mark every file. If anything mismatches, we will want copies. For now, we proceed as guests." The emissary continued to speak about safety. It spoke softly about a great compass it had kept. It said, "There are currents and eddies in space, Captain. Some become traps. We point the way so travelers do not drift into nets. We offer a map of refuge." The words sounded like a promise. The crew relaxed a little. The idea of a map that marked hidden dangers and safe harbors made their muscles loosen with relief. The galaxy had been a place of both beauty and surprise. Knowing where to go was a small mercy in a large and indifferent sky. Mara felt a prickle at the back of her neck. She thought of the children back on Earth who learned their maps of the world with chalk and patience. Humans had always been map makers. They drew coastlines, they traced rivers, and they learned how to read the thin signs the wind left on the grass. A map was never neutral. It always bore the hand of who made it. They reached the central chamber. It was a dome within a dome, a room that smelled of ozone and warm clay. A low pool of water lay in the center, reflecting the arc of light from the ceiling like a bright coin. The emissary stepped beside the pool and gestured to a dais across from it. On the dais stood a device smaller than a human and as complex as a city. Plates and filaments hummed with a pale light. It was the thing the emissary called the compass. "You may see our archive," the emissary said. "We have kept safe the knowledge of the lanes for centuries." It tilted its head, and for the first time Mara noticed how it watched the humans with an interest that went beyond courtesy. It watched like someone who had rehearsed for an audience and kept practicing the art of being kind. Mara moved closer. Her boots made small sounds against the polished floor. She could feel the weight of centuries in the air, or the idea of centuries, things people said about time when they wanted to sound wise. She reached out with a gloved hand to touch the edge of the compass, to feel its temperature and the way it hummed under her touch. Ree stepped to her side. He had a device in his hand, a small scanner the size of a deck of cards. He tapped it lightly against the compass and then projected a small ribbon of data into the air. Lines of hollow text unrolled. They were clean and elegant, the sort of writing a careful mind makes when it wants others to trust it. Mara read the first lines. They told a story of safe currents and marked refuges. They promised guidance and shelter. They named places humans had never heard of and marked them with a gentle stamp of reliability. The compass pulsed once, and then the whole room seemed to breathe in time with it. The emissary smiled in a way that looked like relief. "You see, we are a beacon," it said. "We exist to help. You can trust these markers." Someone in the crew laughed softly, a small sound like air that had been held too long. "It would be a good gift for many explorers," the navigator said. "Routes that don't lead to death, a mercy." Mara's eyes remained on the compass, on the delicate lines that stretched across the projection. She thought of the maps hung in old libraries back home, the ones with islands drawn like beasts. She thought of the hands that had made them and the secrets those hands had kept. She thought of how often a map was a way to control movement. You cannot be lost if someone else decides where you may go. "May I?" she asked the emissary. She wanted to take a closer look at how the compass worked. The emissary inclined its head and stepped aside. It had been ready to please them, to be kind and generous. Mara stepped forward into the space that the alien had opened for her. She did so with her eyes on the compass, not on the emissary. The crew followed her lead, curious, willing to accept an offered kindness. When she stepped into the daisy ringed by the pool, the compass changed color, throwing soft green lines that wrapped the room. For a moment, everyone held their breath at the beauty of it. Then something subtle happened. The emissary took a half-step back. It did not look surprised as much as something in it withdrew like a tide going out. Its bright, practiced smile smoothed. Its shoulders drew in. Mara did not feel threatened. She felt the solid shock of observation. Something in the being's face had changed in a way that meant a story it had told itself would not hold. Ree's scanner blinked and then made a soft, insistent tone. "Captain," he said, "I am receiving a secondary signal from the compass. It appears to be layered information designed to show a single version of the map. There are overlaid markers. They are not part of the original archive." Mara looked up at the emissary. The alien's eyes had shifted. They narrowed just a fraction, but the movement was not a human sign for fear. It was the hint of a thought retracting. Mara remembered her training. When someone changes their stance in the middle of a story, it is often because the story was fragile. She moved slowly back from the compass and said nothing. The quiet in the room gathered like a blanket. The plants rustled faintly in the shallow breeze of the air system. The emissary kept its distance now, the polite welcome folded into a stance that looked like waiting for an answer it hoped would not come. Inside Mara, a spark lit. It was not anger or worry. It was the alertness she felt when a puzzle's edge caught her eye. Maps could be gifts. But they could also be doors that opened to rooms with no exits. She would not step through one without seeing the frame. "Keep that signal," she said quietly. "Save a copy of everything coming from the compass. Prioritize any differences between the live projection and the raw archive. We do this carefully." Nodded, fingers already moving. Outside, the sky over the outpost was clear and bright. Inside, the compass hummed and the emissary watched. The moment had shifted from welcome to question. The alien had stepped back without making a drama of it, and their calm had thinned like glass under pressure. Mara felt the weight of the choice. They could accept the map and leave with roads to follow and an easy path back to safety. Or they could hold the map, look closer, and see what secrets had been smoothed into its lines. Humans had always chosen the harder path when knowledge mattered. She had to decide which kind of map maker she wanted to be. She fixed the smallest smile to her face. "Thank you," she said to the emissary. "We will study your compass. We are explorers, yes, but we do not move blindly. We will leave no harm in this place." The emissary inclined its head, and its tension eased by a breath. It did not move forward. It did not reclaim the space it had given up. Its hand rested just below the gold band on its finger. They had come to a place that promised safety. Now they stood in a room that promised much and hid something under its calm. Mara felt a small thrill. She had wanted knowledge and mystery when she signed up for this life. She had not wanted to find deceit, but she did not flinch from it either. The Odyssey hummed in orbit, patient as a heartbeat. The outpost waited and the compass continued to glow. Outside, the sun moved slowly across a sky the color of old coins. Inside, a human and an alien regarded each other carefully, both of them feeling, for the first time in a long while, the strange and bright thing that happens when a lie begins to show its first crack. The chamber felt heavier now. The faint green glow from the compass pooled across the floor like a shallow lake of light. Mara's eyes remained on the device, tracing the lines that formed patterns she had never seen before. The humans had come expecting a guide, a simple map, maybe some advice for safe travel. What they had found instead was a story that did not fully add up, and Mara's mind worked quickly to untangle it. Ree crouched near the scanner projection, tapping it with his fingers as if to wake it up from sleep. "Captain," he said, voice low and excited, "the layers I am seeing, they're deliberately crafted. Someone wanted us to believe one thing, but the signals suggest another. The compass is showing us only what the emissary wanted." Mara's gaze flicked to the alien. It watched her calmly, hands folded in front of it. There was no sudden movement, no aggressive stance. Yet Mara felt a subtle shift in the air, like the difference between a calm lake and one with hidden currents. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice quiet enough for only Ree to hear. "I am," he said. "There are overlays that repeat patterns we've seen before. The timestamps are skewed. The more I compare the live projection to the raw archive, the more I see signs that the maps were rewritten, almost as if someone wanted to hide something." Mara straightened and stepped closer to the compass. She let her gloved hand hover just above its surface, not touching, just feeling the faint hum of energy it gave off. She remembered the training from the academy, the lessons that had saved her life more than once. Observe, verify, and never take a story at face value. That last rule had proven useful in the past, in negotiations and on worlds where law and morality were entirely different from human standards. She turned her eyes back to the alien. "We appreciate your guidance," she said, steady and polite, "but humans are careful. We verify what we are given. It is not distrust, it is diligence." The alien nodded slightly, the gesture smooth, practiced. Mara noticed that the hand with the gold band shifted slightly as if the alien's composure was thinning. It still smiled, but the polished calm of before had dimmed ever so slightly. Small cracks showed in its careful exterior. Ree pointed at the projection. "Captain, I want to do a side-by-side scan. Compare the archive with the compass projection. There are at least 3 layers that don't match. If we can isolate them, we might see what the emissary is hiding." Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Do it," she said, "but quietly. We don't want to startle them. For now, we observe." The crew set to work. Lights flickered softly as holographic data poured from their devices, intertwining with the green glow of the compass. Lines and dots unfolded in the air like tiny stars tracing invisible constellations. As the layers separated, anomalies became visible. Paths that ended abruptly, signals that looped back on themselves, and sectors of space that were marked as safe when every sensor on the Odyssey indicated otherwise. The alien began to shift on its feet, its head tilting in a careful way. Mara caught it. She had watched humans and other species for years. Patterns of discomfort were universal. The creature was unsettled, though it still maintained its outward calm. "Captain," Ree said, "it's almost as if they wanted to guide us, but also to trap us. Some safe lanes lead to regions that are heavily mined or patrolled by unknown entities. If we trusted this map blindly, we would have walked into danger." Mara's eyes narrowed. Her pulse quickened, not with fear but with that familiar spark of challenge. Humans had faced worse and found solutions. In every story of human exploration, there had been moments where cleverness, intuition, and courage overcame deception. She believed in that. She stepped closer to the alien, her voice firm but courteous. "We noticed differences in the archive and the projection. Can you explain why some paths seem incorrect?" The alien's smile faltered. It moved back slightly, hands lifting in a gesture that was meant to seem harmless. Its eyes, wide and polished, flicked quickly toward the compass, then back to Mara. There was no aggression, but there was tension. It was clear now. The creature's story had cracks, and Mara's observation had forced the first of them to appear. The room remained quiet, the soft hum of the compass filling the space. The water in the shallow pool reflected the ceiling lights, and the plants along the walls swayed faintly, as if sensing the tension. Mara watched the alien carefully. Its movements were precise, but the small retreat betrayed the truth. The creature had hoped to control the narrative, and now it could not. Projected another layer of data, highlighting the discrepancies. "Captain, look at this." The markers for safe travel zones are consistent only with the story the alien is telling us. The original data, the raw archive, shows entirely different conditions. Some of these zones have extreme radiation, others are near predator-dense systems. The compass projection hides that. Mara's mind raced, but her exterior remained calm. "It is what we suspected, but we do not accuse. We observe, we verify, and we prepare." The alien's shoulders shifted. For a moment it appeared to be reconsidering its posture, as if weighing the truth Mara had implied. It spoke, voice measured, calm. "We do not mislead intentionally. The layers are precautions, guidance to protect visitors." Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. "Precautions or control, there is a difference. Humans have survived many deceptions and traps. We read signs, test assumptions, and adjust. If something threatens our crew, we will discover it. That is our nature." The alien's smooth composure wavered again. It had not anticipated confrontation framed so quietly, without aggression, without loud demands. Humans had a way of dismantling pretense simply by noticing it, by refusing to accept a convenient story without evidence. The crew worked quietly, separating each layer of the archive and projection. The differences became undeniable: alternate travel paths, false timestamps, phantom safe zones. The compass, while magnificent in appearance, contained subtle manipulations meant to influence behavior. It was not dangerous in itself, but relying on it blindly could have led to disaster. Mara stepped closer to the compass, her reflection mirrored in the smooth green light. "We are explorers," she said softly, "but not careless ones. We honor guidance when it is truthful. When it is not, we learn the truth for ourselves." The alien's polished eyes flicked to the compass, then back to Mara. Its hands shifted, the gold band catching the light. Mara realized that the alien had been confident that humans would not detect the subtle inconsistencies. It had assumed that grace and calm would hide the gaps. Humans had not only noticed, they had questioned them. That simple act of observation had broken the illusion. Ree spoke again. "Captain, the overlays include hidden instructions. They attempt to channel explorers along routes convenient for the alien's own purposes. But the raw archive, what the alien has not altered, shows the natural lanes, the real safe zones. Mara nodded. We will use only the verified paths, nothing else. We move carefully, but we move with full knowledge. That is the human way. The alien did not speak for a long moment. It studied the humans, their calm persistence, their quiet insistence on verification. Then it said, "You are precise, persistent. You do not accept what is offered blindly." Mara allowed a small smile. "We do not, but we respect the effort of those who seek to guide. We simply ask for honesty." A small tension left the room, though the air remained charged with unspoken understanding. The alien took another careful step back. Its head tilted, eyes reflecting the soft green light. Mara realized that the first layer of deception had been exposed, and the alien had no immediate plan to counter the observation. Its usual confidence had been disrupted. Ree projected the final comparison. Differences were now clear, unmistakable. "Captain, it is obvious. The alien's narrative and the archive are not the same. The compass shows a simplified story that hides risks and funnels explorers where they might be convenient. It was designed to manipulate." Mara turned her eyes on the alien. The creature's smile was faint now, measured. Its hands rested just below the gold band. It had stepped back again, leaving space around the compass, careful to maintain calm. Mara felt the spark of triumph familiar to every human who had solved a puzzle or outwitted a subtle challenge. They had seen through the deception without confrontation, without violence, and without fear. "We will study your compass," Mara said, voice calm but firm. "We will use it as reference, but we will rely on verified knowledge for navigation. Humans always verify. That is how we survive." The alien nodded again. Its posture indicated understanding, though it did not show relief. Mara noted this carefully. It was not the end of the encounter, but the first advantage. The advantage of perception, observation, and careful thought was now in human hands. Outside the chamber, the Odyssey remained in orbit, patient, like it had waited for centuries to witness the first step of understanding. The humans continued their work, separating layers of projection from reality, untangling the threads of truth hidden beneath beauty and calm. Mara observed quietly. The alien remained still smiling, still polite, but its earlier confidence had dissolved. That small retreat spoke volumes. The humans had not needed force, only thought, care, and persistence. It was a subtle victory, but a human one. As the crew moved methodically through the data, Mara realized that exploration was not just about finding worlds, star systems, or alien species. Exploration was about truth. Humans had the patience to wait, the persistence to observe, and the courage to act when deception appeared. That combination made them formidable, not in violence but in understanding. By the time they were ready to leave the chamber, every member of the crew had seen the subtle truth. The alien's projection was a story meant to control, but it had not accounted for human observation, human thought, and human insistence on verifying what was given. That insistence alone had shifted the balance. Mara stepped back from the compass for the last time, letting her gaze sweep the room. The emissary had not moved closer, had not tried to impose control. It had retreated, folded its gestures carefully, but it was present. And Mara knew, without needing to speak it aloud, that the humans had won the first round. Not with weapons, not with anger, but with clarity and quiet determination. The room settled into silence. Light reflected off the water pool, the compass glowed faintly, and the plants swayed. The alien, tall and calm, kept its eyes on the humans, measuring, calculating, perhaps reconsidering its assumptions. The humans packed their devices, saved the verified data, and prepared to leave. Mara lingered for a moment, eyes on the green glow. They had come seeking guidance and found the first crack in a lie. They had taken nothing by force, yet gained everything that observation and thought could provide. That, she knew, was humanity at its finest, clever, patient, and determined to survive and understand. The moment had shifted. From invitation to scrutiny, from calm to realization, and now to quiet mastery. The humans had proven their worth, not just as explorers but as beings capable of seeing through careful deceptions. They had reminded the alien that intelligence and courage were not the sole domain of any one species. Mara smiled faintly. It was not triumph. It was acknowledgement. Humans had navigated another puzzle, learned its rules, and emerged with understanding intact. The next steps would matter, but for now, observation, verification, and quiet persistence had given them what no map alone could provide: the knowledge that they could survive, even when faced with carefully hidden deception. The emissary stepped aside, allowing the human space to exit. Mara led her crew toward the doors, each step measured, aware of the power of simple observation. The alien followed at a distance, silent, still, watching and learning as much about humans as the humans had learned about the map. As they left the chamber, Mara felt the familiar thrill of discovery. Not the flashy thrill of new planets or alien technology, but the subtle, satisfying thrill of understanding, of seeing through artifice, and of knowing that humanity's greatest strength lay not in weapons or size, but in thought, courage, and careful observation. The outpost faded behind them as they walked down the halls. Lights shifted across the walls. The alien maintained distance, polite and still wary. Mara's mind was already working, thinking about the next steps: how to navigate safely, how to verify every detail, how to keep the advantage that observation had given them. Humanity had taken the first clear step forward. And that step, Mara knew, was enough to tip the balance in their favor. The chamber's glow dimmed slightly as the humans moved further along the halls, but Mara's mind remained bright with thought. Every step they took echoed softly against the polished floor, a faint counterpoint to the hum of the ship outside and the pulse of the compass they had just studied. She kept one hand on the railing that lined the hall, not out of necessity, but out of habit. Small gestures helped maintain focus, and focus had kept humans alive in countless uncertain moments. Ree walked beside her, fingers hovering over a portable scanner, still reviewing the layers of information they had gathered. "Captain," he said quietly, "the discrepancies are more than just paths and timestamps. The archives show that some of these so-called safe zones have multiple hidden variables. Environmental hazards, radiation bursts, predator zones, even small gravity anomalies. If anyone followed the original projection blindly, they could end up stranded or worse." Mara nodded, absorbing the information. Her eyes flicked briefly toward the alien, who kept a careful distance, its tall form moving with quiet precision but still carrying an aura of tension. The emissary had learned that the humans saw through its deception. Mara knew it would now act more cautiously, and she intended to use that caution to gather further knowledge. Humans had always thrived where others underestimated them. Observation was a weapon, one wielded silently and without aggression. "Ree," she said, voice low and steady, "let's prioritize mapping the true safe zones first. Every anomaly, every false marker, log it. This data will be invaluable not just for us but for future travelers." Ree nodded, scanning the walls as they walked. He tapped the portable device against the panels, bringing up hidden readings that the alien had not intended to be seen. The scans revealed tiny traces of energy flowing along the hallways, subtle, like the pulse of a heartbeat, but faint and deliberate. The alien had placed them carefully, perhaps as a secondary security measure, or perhaps to test visitors. Mara did not know yet, but she made a mental note to analyze them later. The alien maintained its distance, following at the rear, its eyes occasionally flicking toward the humans' devices. Mara suspected it was curious about their technology as much as concerned about their discoveries. She understood that perfectly. Humans had always been masters of adaptation. A species that could read a star, calculate a trajectory, and navigate by instinct and intellect had a natural advantage in moments of uncertainty. The alien would soon understand that this was not a crew to manipulate easily. They reached a side chamber, smaller than the main dome but intricately detailed. Light patterns flowed across the walls like water, shifting slowly, casting reflections that seemed almost alive. Mara allowed herself a moment to appreciate the craftsmanship. Whoever had built this place had skill, patience, and aesthetic sensibility. Yet the traces of subtle manipulation remained clear. The patterns were designed to calm, to distract, to create a false sense of safety. Humans could feel beauty, but they also noticed inconsistencies. That dual awareness had always given them an edge. Ree crouched near a control panel embedded in the wall. "Captain, these panels seem interactive, but the responses are layered. The top layer presents information the alien wants us to see. Beneath that is raw data, environmental readings, structural layouts, energy flows. I can isolate it, but it will take some time." "Do it," Mara said. "Slowly, carefully. We cannot assume anything here is what it seems. Observe first, then interact." As Ree worked, Mara allowed her eyes to sweep across the room. The alien's presence was deliberate, calm, yet it no longer carried the same confident assurance from earlier. Mara knew that her crew's quiet persistence had unsettled it. They had exposed the first lie, the first layer of manipulation. Now they would follow through to see the full picture. The walls seemed almost alive under the scanning light. Hidden panels revealed energy conduits, chambers with unknown machinery, and data streams flowing along invisible channels. Mara realized that the alien had intended to create an environment that felt safe and informative while subtly shaping the human's perception. It was clever, but human observation had already begun to unravel the threads. She turned to the alien, speaking calmly, deliberately. "We appreciate your guidance, but humans value verification. We must know the truth. Every detail matters. Do you understand?" The alien's polished eyes flicked toward her, then toward the scanning devices. Its movements were smooth, almost graceful, yet Mara detected a subtle tension in its posture. It had hoped that politeness and appearance of openness would suffice. Humans did not rely solely on appearances. They relied on curiosity, patience, and the drive to see hidden truths. "Yes," the alien said finally. Its voice was calm, measured, but there was a faint edge Mara had not noticed before. Perhaps caution, perhaps concern. Either way, it had acknowledged the truth of her words. Ree's device hummed and projected the isolated layer of raw data. The room lit up with intricate streams of information, revealing structural layouts, energy conduits, and environmental hazards that the alien had obscured. Mara studied the projections carefully. Every corridor, every room, every chamber had been mapped with intent. The alien had hoped to control perception, but the humans now had access to reality. "Captain," Ree said, pointing at one section, "these chambers here, if followed according to the alien's projected map, would lead explorers into a dead end. Radiation levels spike unexpectedly, and environmental conditions are unstable. It's almost as if the top layer was designed to mislead." Mara's eyes narrowed. Not malicious, necessarily, calculated. The alien wanted to guide without revealing everything, but we see the full picture now. This is knowledge, not threat. The alien shifted slightly. Its head tilted, eyes reflecting the green glow of the compass from earlier. Mara sensed that it was reconsidering its approach. The humans had demonstrated the first principle it had underestimated: careful observation and independent verification. "We will follow the correct paths," Mara said. "We do not act blindly. That is what allows humans to survive." A small pause settled in the room. The alien's posture relaxed slightly, though it maintained distance. Mara understood this as acknowledgement. It was not surrender or compliance. It was recognition of the humans' capability. Humans did not rely solely on power or intimidation. They relied on ingenuity, patience, and careful assessment. That combination had allowed them to survive countless unknowns across the galaxy. The crew continued to map the chamber, cataloging every anomaly, every hidden detail. Mara observed silently, taking mental notes and considering strategy. The alien's reaction was deliberate but restrained. It had realized that humans were not easily deceived. Observation, patience, and subtle questioning had given them the upper hand without confrontation. Hours passed as they moved through interconnected chambers. Every room presented new challenges: layered projections, false environmental cues, hidden data nodes. Mara instructed her crew to approach each with the same caution and curiosity. There were no shortcuts. Knowledge required effort, and humans had always excelled where effort, patience, and intellect intersected. The alien occasionally spoke, offering guidance that was now carefully measured. Mara listened, not dismissing it, but comparing every statement against the raw data they had gathered. It became clear that the creature had initially relied on politeness and presentation to mask incomplete disclosure. Humans had dismantled that strategy simply by observing, questioning, and verifying. Projected another data layer. Captain, these markers are significant. They show areas the alien intended as checkpoints. If navigated correctly, they provide safety. But if relied on without verification, they could mislead. We have now isolated the truth. Mara's eyes glinted with quiet satisfaction. Good work. That is why humans always verify. Knowledge is not a gift, it is earned. The alien's head tilted slightly. There was an understanding in its stance now, a recognition that humans possessed a methodical and relentless intelligence. Mara realized that they had not only uncovered the hidden truth of the compass, but they had also conveyed, without force, a message about humanity itself. Observation, careful reasoning, and persistence could outmatch subtle deception. As they moved toward the final chambers, Mara felt the familiar thrill of discovery. The alien's carefully constructed narrative had crumbled under patient analysis. Its layers of manipulation were now transparent. Humans had demonstrated their signature strength, the ability to discern, adapt, and persist in the face of uncertainty. Finally, they entered a room that appeared to be the heart of the outpost. Large consoles lined the walls, displaying complex networks of energy and data flows. Holographic projections of star systems shimmered in midair, some flowing along the intended paths, others displaying the hidden realities uncovered by Mara stepped forward, letting her eyes scan the room. "This is it," she said softly. "We have the knowledge now, every safe path, every hazard, all of it, verified." The alien watched silently, no longer attempting to impress or mislead. Mara sensed a grudging respect in its calm posture. Humans had not needed force, charm, or aggression. They had relied on intellect, patience, and methodical observation. That had been enough. Reactivated the final comparison. Every projection, every discrepancy, every hidden layer was now visible. Mara studied them carefully. Each revealed the subtle intentions behind the compass, the design of the outpost, and the alien's carefully crafted narrative. Humans had transformed a situation of partial truth into complete understanding. Mara turned to the alien. "You see," she said quietly, "we honor guidance when it is truthful. When it is not, we learn the truth ourselves. That is the human way. That is how we survive and how we thrive." The alien's polished eyes met hers. For the first time, Mara saw hesitation, an acknowledgement that humans had not only uncovered deception, but had done so without violence, without coercion, and without fear. They had relied on intellect, observation, and courage. Hours later, as the humans prepared to leave the central chamber, Mara reflected on the process. They had entered expecting guidance, discovered manipulation, and uncovered the truth. Each step had been deliberate, careful, and patient. Each small observation had built into a complete understanding. Humanity had not simply survived, it had demonstrated its defining qualities: curiosity, intelligence, and the relentless pursuit of truth. The alien stepped aside, its tall form respectful yet wary. Mara led her crew down the hallways toward the exit, each member aware of the power of careful observation. Outside, the Odyssey remained in orbit, a silent witness to the unfolding understanding. Humans had faced subtle deception and emerged with knowledge and strategy intact. Mara allowed herself a faint smile. It was not triumph in the usual sense. It was acknowledgement, a recognition that humanity's strength lay not in weapons or force, but in patience, intellect, and courage. That understanding would guide them in the next steps, wherever the galaxy led them. And now, Mara knew, they were ready for what would come next. The humans moved cautiously through the halls of the alien outpost, carrying the collected data from the compass and archive layers. Every step echoed softly, a quiet rhythm of thought and anticipation. Mara walked at the front, her eyes scanning every surface, every panel, every shadow. She had learned long ago that the smallest detail could reveal the largest truth. In the stillness of the corridors, she felt the pulse of the outpost itself, as though it were aware of their presence and reacting in subtle ways. The alien emissary remained a few steps behind, silent, its tall frame almost serene. Its polished eyes flicked to the crew and back to the walls. Mara sensed that it had realized fully that humans were not easily fooled, and that the deception it had tried to weave had been revealed. The creature's calm demeanor remained, but a tension lingered in its posture, a recognition of the human's perceptiveness. Adjusted the portable scanner and projected a three-dimensional map in the air. Lines of data traced the corridors, rooms, and chambers, showing the differences between the original archive and the compass projection. "Captain," he said, "every false marker has been identified. Every altered path has been logged. We have verified the safe zones against environmental hazards, structural integrity, and radiation levels. We are ready to leave with complete understanding of the outpost's layout and the compass, real information." Mara nodded. "Good work. That is the human way. Observe, verify, and understand before acting. That combination has carried us farther than any weapon ever could." The alien shifted slightly, as if acknowledging the statement. It did not speak immediately, perhaps measuring what to say next. Mara allowed the silence to linger. She had learned that quiet observation often spoke louder than words, and that patience could reveal truths that confrontation never could. Finally, the alien spoke. Its voice was calm, measured, but carried a faint edge of respect. "You are careful, persistent. You do not accept what is presented without verification. That is rare among explorers." Mara's lips curved slightly. "We honor truth, not appearances. Knowledge is valuable only when it is verified. That is why humans survive, even where others might fail." The alien's polished eyes reflected the green glow of the compass, and for the first time, Mara thought she saw something resembling admiration. The creature had expected visitors to accept its guidance blindly, or at least without question. Humans had refused to be guided blindly. They had questioned, observed, and verified. They had exposed the cracks in the story without anger, without force, and without fear. That, Mara knew, was what had unsettled the alien most. They reached a chamber that led to the outer airlocks, the final point before the humans returned to the Odyssey. Mara paused at the threshold, letting her gaze sweep over the alien one last time. "We appreciate your willingness to share the compass," she said. "Now we leave, not with anger or suspicion, but with knowledge. Knowledge earned through observation and understanding. That is the human way." The alien inclined its head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. It had no choice but to respect the humans' diligence. Mara knew that in the galaxy, respect often mattered more than fear. Humans had a way of earning it through intellect, courage, and patience rather than force. As the humans stepped into the final chamber, the air shifted slightly, the subtle currents of ventilation carrying the faint scent of metal and ozone. The alien remained still, tall and poised, allowing them to pass. Mara felt a thrill not of victory, but of understanding. The humans had completed their task without confrontation, without threats, and without compromise of their ethics. Their approach, careful, persistent, intelligent, had won the upper hand naturally. Outside, the Odyssey floated silently in orbit, waiting like a patient guardian. Mara and her crew moved toward the airlock. Every panel, every mechanism, every door had been scanned, logged, and understood. They had not simply navigated a physical space, they had navigated a web of information and perception. Ree adjusted the portable scanner one last time. Captain, the final comparison is complete. Every layer of deception, every false marker, every alteration documented. We now have a complete, verified map of the outpost and the compass, true guidance. Nothing remains hidden from us. Mara allowed herself a small smile. Excellent, humans have always excelled at what others overlook: observation, patience, and the drive to understand. That is our greatest strength. Not size, not weapons, not raw power, but intellect, curiosity, and persistence. The alien's posture shifted again. Mara could sense it weighing the words. Perhaps it understood the truth that humans were not only capable of seeing deception, but also of using it as an opportunity to learn and grow. The humans had transformed a situation of potential manipulation into complete knowledge. That was a victory, but it was one without conflict. As the crew prepared to leave the outpost, Mara took one last look at the compass. Its lines glowed softly, tracing the verified paths they had uncovered. The device had been impressive, designed to guide and protect, but its value had been limited until humans applied observation, analysis, and verification. It was a reminder that tools alone were not enough. Understanding, persistence, and intellect were what made humans formidable. The airlock doors hissed open, revealing the view of the planet below. Jagged ridges and shimmering plains stretched toward the horizon. The humans stepped through carefully, carrying the verified data and the lessons learned from the alien outpost. Every step was deliberate, every action measured. They had faced subtle deception and had emerged with knowledge intact and integrity preserved. Mara paused for a moment at the threshold, allowing herself to reflect. The humans had come to this outpost seeking guidance and had found it, but only after seeing through the aliens' carefully constructed story. Observation, verification, and patience had allowed them to navigate uncertainty successfully. These qualities, Mara knew, were the foundation of humanity's success across the galaxy. The alien remained at the doorway, silent, its polished eyes reflecting both the light of the outpost and the understanding of the human's capabilities. Mara sensed that it had learned something from this encounter as well. Humans were not easily deceived, and their intelligence and persistence were qualities to be respected, even by species far older or more advanced in other ways. As the crew boarded the Odyssey, Mara took the captain's chair, her mind already calculating the next steps. The verified maps would guide them safely through the star systems ahead. The knowledge they had gained extended beyond simple coordinates. It was a testament to human ingenuity and the power of careful thought. Ree approached her with the final data logs. "Captain, every path, every hazard, every hidden variable documented. The humans of this mission have achieved complete understanding." Mara nodded, her gaze on the viewport. The planet below receded as the Odyssey ascended, slipping smoothly into orbit. "Good work, Ree. Remember this, humans thrive where others fail because we observe, question, and persist. We adapt. That is our greatest strength." The alien watched from the airlock, its form tall and still. Mara realized that the encounter had changed both sides. The humans had gained knowledge and confidence, and the alien had gained insight into a species that could not be manipulated easily. Respect, Mara knew, was often more valuable than fear in the galaxy. The ship's engines hummed as they prepared to leave orbit. Mara allowed herself a quiet moment to reflect on the journey. The compass had been impressive, the outpost carefully designed, and the alien skilled in presentation. But the humans' combination of observation, verification, and persistence had uncovered the full truth. As stars streaked past the viewport, Mara thought of humanity's history. Humans had thrived in environments that seemed impossible, survived challenges that others deemed insurmountable, and discovered truths hidden from those who relied solely on appearances. The galaxy was vast, full of unknowns, but humans had shown once again that intelligence, patience, and courage were more powerful than deception or assumed superiority. The crew gathered around the main console, reviewing the verified paths and analyzing the newly acquired data. Every anomaly, every hidden hazard, every misrepresented route had been documented. The Odyssey was ready to navigate with full understanding. Mara's eyes swept across her crew. Each one had demonstrated the qualities that made humans exceptional: curiosity, intelligence, persistence, and ethical reasoning. They had faced a species capable of subtle manipulation and had emerged with knowledge, strategy, and understanding. That, she knew, was more valuable than any treasure or resource. The alien remained at the threshold of the outpost, watching silently. Mara understood that it had learned something as well. Humans could not be deceived easily, and their strength lay not in aggression or force, but in intellect and careful observation. The Odyssey lifted smoothly from the planet's surface, leaving the outpost behind. Mara allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had once again proven itself capable, not through violence, not through domination, but through understanding, persistence, and the careful application of intelligence. As the ship slipped into the calm expanse of space, Mara addressed her crew. Remember this mission. Knowledge is power, but only when verified. Observation, patience, and careful reasoning will guide us safely through the galaxy. That is what makes humans strong. That is what makes us survive and thrive. The crew nodded, understanding not just the technical lessons of the mission, but the deeper human truth that had been reinforced. They had navigated deception, uncovered hidden truths, and maintained their integrity throughout. The alien outpost grew smaller in the viewport, a monument to clever design and subtle manipulation. But the humans had left with something greater: knowledge, insight, and confidence in their abilities. Humanity's perseverance, intellect, and ethics had prevailed where subtle deception had once threatened to mislead them. Mara leaned back in her chair, watching the stars stretch across the blackness of space. The journey ahead would hold more challenges, more unknowns, and perhaps more encounters with other species. But one truth had been reinforced: humans could see, understand, and adapt where others might fail. Observation, verification, and patience were more than strategies. They were human strengths, honed through centuries of survival and exploration. As the Odyssey moved steadily toward the next star system, Mara allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. Humanity had faced deception and emerged not only unscathed but stronger. The alien had learned as much about them as they had about it. The galaxy would continue to test them, but Mara knew this truth. Humans had a way of thriving where others faltered, not because of force, but because of intellect, persistence, and the careful pursuit of understanding. And with that knowledge, the Odyssey continued its journey, carrying humans who had once again proven their worth, not just as explorers, but as a species capable of facing deception, uncertainty, and challenge, and emerging stronger, wiser, and ever more capable. The alien backed away quickly when the human entered. their lies shattered.